Everybody, get out to vote now. Everybody, don't forget to vote now. Everybody, get out to vote now. Everybody, don't forget to vote now. Everybody, get out to vote now. Everybody, don't forget to vote now. Vote, vote. Gotta take it back. The old school way. Gotta give it to you raw. Ain't got time to waste. We're slipping bad in politics today. We'll bim bamboozle like modern day slaves. Gotta tell you that. Hello, hello. Happy Monday. Getting ready to do a Facebook Live on voting and elections. Let me get it shared here. Hello, hello. In just a moment, and we're going to get started here. If you can see this Facebook Live, share this with someone on your timeline. I'm going to be sharing some important information about voting and elections this afternoon. So if you are viewing this Facebook Live, if you can, share it with someone. Here in Louisiana, we have a day and a half left of early vote, and election day is next Tuesday, November 5th. So I'm going to be sharing some information about voting and elections. So share this live. Okay, I'm just trying to get it shared to a few other pages, and we are going to get started. Cynthia here. Okay, I think I have it shared to where I need it to be. Don't forget to vote now. All right. I think I have it going. All right, so hello, hello. Let me stop my music. That is, what's his name? Lester Finney. Everybody, don't forget to vote now. That's one of my favorite little vote songs. So, good afternoon. Happy Monday to you. I am doing a pop up Facebook Live this afternoon to share some important information about voting and elections because we are right here in election season in Louisiana. Here we have 1.5 more days left of early voting. So if you have not already early voted, I encourage you to get out and early vote. Tomorrow is the last day to early vote in Louisiana. So if you don't vote tomorrow, then you will have to go next Tuesday, November 5th. Early voting, the polls are open from 8:30 a.m. until 6 o'clock p.m. in the evening. So if you haven't got a chance, I encourage you to go out and do that. But I am going to share my slides. I have a presentation that I want to share today on voting and elections because I know, and especially for young people, even for older people, not just young people, but a lot of times, we're telling people go out to vote, go out to vote, go out to vote. And sometimes people just don't know the voting process, especially for those that have never been registered to vote. Young people who are registering for their first time, they don't know the election process, they don't know the voting process. So I'm going to share some information. What I'm sharing, I have a Sacred Civic Action Masterclass that's made up of 4 different sections, but today I'm just going to be talking about voting and elections. So I just pulled the voting and elections section from my full masterclass that I have on Sacred Civic Action. So today is not going to be as long as it would normally be with the full Sacred Civic Action Masterclass. So I'm just going to be sharing today about voting in elections because we have a very, very important and consequential election that is underway. and we need all hands on deck. We need everybody to be out casting their ballot, and there's no excuse for you not to know what it is that you need to do with voting. So that's why I've been doing everything I can do to help to get out the vote and engage people, inform people, and make sure that we are making an informed decision, that we're not just showing up at the polls and we don't know what's going on. I want you to be able to make an informed decision when you go and cast your ballot. So this is the information that I'm going to be sharing today. So I'm getting ready to share my slides. Again, if you're watching this video, please share this on your timeline. Someone may need to hear and see the information that I am sharing today, okay? So let me get my slides shared. I hope that you can see me and hear me okay. All right, so I'm going to do a presentation on voting and elections. This is one part of my four-part series on my Sacred Civic Action Masterclass. So today I'm just going to be talking about voting in elections, but I do have a full masterclass where I teach on civics 101, volunteer service, and civil protests. But today I just pulled the voting and elections piece from it. So that's all I'm going to be sharing today. Okay? So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Cynthia Young. I'm a certified life coach and the founder of Institute for Growing in Grace, a faith based coaching and teaching ministry. We work to empower and equip individuals through our empowerment zone of life coaching, masterclasses, Bible studies, prayer, fun, and fellowship, and more. So, that's me. I'm Cynthia. All right. So, what is sacred civic action? Sacred Civic Action aims to blend spiritual principles with civic responsibilities to educate, engage, and empower individuals to take civic action. So when you hear Sacred Civic Action, actually that's the name of my book that I just recently published, Sacred Civic Action, Quick Guide to Engaging in Civic Life. So that's what Sacred Civic Action is all about. And I also have Sacred Civic Conversations. I just hosted my first Sacred Civic Conversations this past weekend, this past Saturday, at the coffee shop at what's the name of the coffee shop on Government Street? I forgot the name of the coffee shop, but it's over there, old Government Street. I hosted my first sacred civic conversations. So that's what sacred civic action is all about. So to get started, you need to know that you are a citizen. You are a citizen. Hold on, give me just a moment here. Okay, you are a citizen. A citizen is a member of a community who has rights and responsibilities. A community is a group of people who share an environment. People who live in a certain place or are a member of a certain community, people who are legally recognized by a nation as owing loyalty to that nation and being entitled to protection by the nation. Every day you are part of several different layers of community. That means you have many different levels of citizenship. At each level, you have rights and responsibilities. So you need to know as a citizen of the United States of America, if you are here in America, you are a citizen and you are a member of a community, and your citizen with your that what comes along with your citizenship is rights and responsibilities. So as a citizen you have rights and you have responsibilities. So that's the first thing I need you to know, as we get into talking about voting and elections, that you are a citizen, because everyone that's here in the United States of America do not have rights and responsibilities as a United States citizen. So whether you've born here or you've been naturalized as a citizen, if you are here as a citizen, you have rights and responsibilities. So I just wanted to make sure that I start the presentation off with that, because we have to know, because when we're telling people to go out and vote And when we're educating people around voting in elections, I need you to understand that everyone is not eligible to vote here in the United States of America. So you have to be a citizen who has rights and responsibilities to be able to. All right, there are some key terms as the word a candidate for public office. Local election, that's an election where mayors and local officials are elected. So your local elections consist of elections that's in your city or in your town. They're local. They're not on a state level. They're not on a federal level. So let's say your school board elections, election for mayor, say election for your district attorney in your parish or county, say election for judgeships, your Metro City Council persons, all those are considered local elections. And those elections are very, very important. I know a lot of times when we think about the presidential election, that's when everybody come out to vote. But we need to make sure that we are voting on those local elections as well, because those are very, very important. And veto, to stop legislation from being passed into law. So veto, that means to stop a bill from being passed into law. So when citizens cast their vote for someone, they vote for the ideas and policies that the candidate supports. People vote for elected officials at every level of government. That means every vote cast could change local, state, or federal government. Voting rights have changed over time. Specific voting rights were not in the original Constitution. Citizens fought for the right for women and African Americans to vote by passing amendments to the Constitution and voting rights laws. So we're going to get into that further down in the presentation, where we're going to talk about some of those voting rights that we were afforded that came further along in the Constitution. They wasn't a original right for certain people. So this is why do citizens vote? So we ask the question. When you're voting for ideas and policies. So just think about that when you're going to the polls, when you're casting your ballot, that you're not just voting for a person, but you're voting for your values. You're voting for what you believe in. And the candidate that you select may not share every single value that you have. The candidate that you are selecting just may not share everything about everything that about you that you care about. So just know that you're not just necessarily selecting a candidate, but you're voting for your ideas and your values. So faith without works is dead. So we need to pray and take action. So as it relates to elections and voting, we want to do more than just vote. We want to make sure that we're praying about the election. We're praying about the candidates, not just one candidate, the one that you're in favor of. I vote for all candidates, whether it's a candidate that I am in favor of or not, that I support or I oppose. I vote for all candidates. So faith without works is dead. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? For brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things needed for the body. What good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But someone would say, "You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works." So that is come from scripture, James chapter 2, verse 14 through 18. And in this verse, James is calling for born again people to apply what we believe. So we can't say that we have faith, but we are not putting our faith to action. So faith without works is dead. So we have to be taking action. We have to be doing something. We can't just be, waiting for someone else to do all the work. We have to make sure that we are doing our part as well. All right, so I have a pop quiz for you. I like to quiz people on this little pop quiz everywhere I go when I'm out and about. Oh, I didn't want to put the answers. And I can't see if anyone is viewing or sharing in the chat, but I'm just going to go and show the answers. But I have a pop quiz. What are the three branches of government? We have executive, legislative, and judicial. So that is my little pop quiz because studies show that one in three persons do not know the three branches of government. So that's why I like to do this little pop quiz because studies have shown that, I mean, and you would think that this is something basic that everyone knows, but studies show if you ask one in three persons, they cannot tell you what the three branches of government are. So, in order to be able to vote and participate in the election process, we have to know the process. We have to know how the process works, and we have to know what the three branches of government is. So, that's why I always like to do this little pop quiz to see if we know what the three branches of government are. All right, so three branches separate but equal. So the nation's framers wanted to ensure that no one government official or group had too much power. They created three branches of federal government that share power. So we have the executive branch, that is the president and his or her executive branch that carry out the laws. We have the legislative branch, that is Congress that makes the laws, and we have the judicial branch, that's the Supreme Court, who interpret the laws. So with the executive branch, the checks on the legislative branch, well, the legislative branch, they can propose laws, they can veto laws. So say that Congress passed the bill and it goes to the president, and the president do not sign that bill, it goes back to Congress, it goes back to the legislature, and they have to vote on the bill again, two-thirds of a vote, and then it goes back to the president. So if the president don't sign it, that bill can automatically become a law. So the president can veto laws, and but if the president just decide to not sign a law, then a bill can just become law because the president decided not to sign it. So checks on legislative, checks on judicial branch. They and now this is the executive branch. This is what they do. They have checks on the legislative branch. They have checks on the judicial branch. Again, we have checks and balances because when the framers wrote the Constitution, they didn't want one branch of government to have more power than the other branch. So in the executive branch, they can make appointments. They can make like judicial appointments, appoint federal judges. They can grant pardons to federal offenders. So those who are doing federal time, the president can pardon them. The president can make pardons. The executive branch can negotiate foreign treaties. So now let's talk about the legislative branch. Congress makes laws. So checks on the executive branch, they can override the president's veto. And I think I explained that in the first one, but I say if the president veto a bill, it goes back to Congress and they can override the president's veto if they vote, have two-thirds of the vote. It goes back to where the bill originally started, whichever house is starting, whether it was Congress or the Senate, it goes back there and they can override the president's veto. The legislative branch can confirm executive appointments, ratify treaties, they can declare war, they can appropriate money, they can impeach and remove a president. So the legislative branch has a lot of power, and that is Congress and the Senate. So a lot of times we think that the president has power to do everything, but the president power is limited. The president can only do as much as the legislative branch allows him or her to do. So a lot of times, we say the president didn't do this or the president do that. If the president don't have a Congress that is majority, whatever that president is, say he's a or her is a Democratic president, if they don't have a majority Senate and majority Congress that supports what that president supports, it's going to be hard for that president to pass laws. Okay, so when we think that, okay, we have a president here, the president is not doing what we think they should do, but a lot of times it's because they don't have a legislative branch that is supporting or backing what it is that they want to do. So they have checks on the judicial branch, creates lower federal courts, can impeach and remove judges, can propose amendments to overrule judicial decisions, approves appointments of federal judges. So that's what the legislative branch can do. And we have the judicial branch. So that is our judges. Supreme Court interprets laws, checks on the executive branch. So they can declare executive actions unconstitutional, check on the legislative branch, can declare acts of Congress unconstitutional. So just remember that one branch does not have more power over another branch. It all has to be balanced out. And that's included the president. The president does not have all the power. A lot of times when things are not going the way you want it to go, we can't just blame the president. We have to look at how is your Congress person voting? How is your senator voting? So you need to be checking in. So that goes back to these local and state elections. You need to make sure that the person that you put in office to represent your state is supporting the president. Because if they're not supporting the president, then the president is only so much the president can do. So, how a bill becomes a law. There are three ways to pass a bill. The first way, a bill must pass both houses of Congress by a majority vote. It must then be sent to the president. If the president signs the bill, boom, it becomes a law. The second way is a bill must pass both houses by a majority vote and be sent to the president. If the president vetoes the bill, then he sends it back to the house in which it started. If both houses pass it again by a 2/3 majority vote, I think I shared this earlier, yeah, it becomes a law without the president's signature. So the president don't have to sign it. If the president do not want to sign that bill, it can go back to where it started at. And if it get a 2/3 majority vote, then it becomes a law without the president's signature. So again, the president does not have all the power. There are checks and balances. The president can't just do what he or she wants to do without some type of checks and balances from the other branches of government. So a third way a bill becomes a law is it must pass both houses by a majority vote and be sent to the president. The president keeps it 10 days, Sundays accepted, it becomes a law without his signature, unless Congress adjourns the 10 days are up. So if the president just let the bill sit on his desk for at least 10 days, then apparently the president probably don't want to sign it. It's a bill that they probably don't support. So they don't want to veto it, but they don't want to sign it either. So they'll just let it sit there and it becomes a law without the president's signature. So that is another way that a bill becomes a law. All right. And this is just a little illustration that shows how a bill becomes a law. A bill is introduced in either chamber of Congress, House of Representatives, or the Senate. Then it goes to committee, it's debated on the committee floor. They can debate it, they can amend it, make changes to the bill if needed. They can vote on it, they can table it, defeat it, pass it. So once they debate it, they have their discussions around the bill, why the bill should be passed, why the bill should not be passed. However type of way they feel about the bill, they have those discussions in committee hearings where they debate the bill. So then they can decide to vote on it. They can table it and just wait, just sit it to the side for a while. They can straight defeat the bill. We're not doing anything with it. Or we can pass it. Then it goes to the floor, action by chamber. Most bills require a simple majority vote. So again, this goes back to the people that you are electing and sending to Congress and Senate. See the way those people that you elect to office, see how they are voting. All of this is public information. You can go and see the way your state representative, your congressperson, your senator, you can see how they vote on every bill. And if we have a president that's in office and your senator or your congressperson is not voting to support what the president is supporting, then you can kind of get an understanding of why certain bills don't pass. Certain bills pass and certain bills don't pass. The bill moves to I read that. The bill moves to the other chamber. Then it goes to committee in the other chamber. So wherever the bill originates, that's where it start the debate, whether you vote on it. If it passes, then it goes to the other chamber. If it don't pass, it don't even leave out of that chamber. So the bill has to pass to keep moving along. So it goes to the floor action by chamber. If it passed without an amendment, or if it passed with the amendment, if it passed without an amendment, it goes straight to the president. We don't have to make any changes to it. We don't have to amend it. We don't have to do anything. This bill is good. It goes straight to the president. President signs it. It becomes law. If the president veto it, goes back to wherever it started. Then they have to vote on it again. But if it passes with an amendment, then you have to have another meeting, another discussion about the changes, how you want to change this bill. You might want to change the language in the bill. It's different things you can do to change the bill. So once you amend it, it has to go through the process all over again. So that's how a bill becomes a law. All right, so share one fact you already know about the history of voting and voting rights. So the 15th Amendment, so the African American vote. The 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote in 1870. So that was a amendment to the Constitution. So when we think about voting rights, y'all, African Americans, men and women alike, did not always have the right to vote. When this Constitution was drafted, we didn't have a right to vote. So that's why I am so I push this because I need people to understand that this right that we have to vote, we didn't always have it. There were so many people, and I don't really like to push this on folks and tell them how our ancestors and, those that came before us, how they had to die for the right to vote. They just had to go through so much that we don't have to go through today. We can just go and get us a driver's license, ID, and go to the polls, go show up and cast our ballot. That was not the case in 2 centuries ago. That was not the case. It wasn't that easy. They had to fight. They had to die. They had to shed blood. It was a struggle. And so that's why I try to stress to people how important it is that we go out there and exercise our right to vote, because we did not always have this right. Every freedom that African Americans have today, it had to come through lawsuits. It had to come through legislation. It did not just come freely. Like, some people in this country were just born with rights. I don't have to tell you who those people are. But for others, people that look like me, we wasn't born with those rights. I was born with that right because of the year that I was born in. But those that came before me wasn't born with that right. We didn't always have this right to vote. So just know that every freedom that African Americans have gained in these United States of America, it had to come through people filing lawsuits. And lawsuits are still happening right now today. If you're in Louisiana, oh my goodness, we have lawsuits for everything. So just know that these lawsuits have to be passed. There has to be litigation in order to get to some of these freedoms and rights that we have, especially as African Americans. So the promise of the 15th Amendment would not be fully realized for almost a century. So even though African Americans got the right to vote, and it wasn't for all African Americans, let me be clear, it was only for men. Women didn't get their right to vote till some time down the line. So this was just for African American men. And then in 1870, they still didn't have their freedom yet. It still wasn't until a while before it was even realized that they can even use that right. So using poll taxes, literacy tests, and other means, Southern states were able to disenfranchise African Americans. I live in Louisiana. I live in one of those Southern disenfranchised states that did not have that right to vote. We had to pay. I just seen on Instagram the other day, I think this was in Georgia, a lady in Georgia. She had the poll tax on her T-shirt, and she was saying how she had to pay $2 to vote, and she was in line, and she was like, "Today I can vote free." But I think she said this is in 1960, and I need y'all to understand that this stuff wasn't that far removed from what we are today. This is in the 1960s and the 50s. So just know that this wasn't centuries ago when we were disenfranchised. So they had to pay poll taxes. They had to, like, we can just go to the polls right now and vote for free. We don't have to pay anything. But back then, they had to pay to go and vote. They had to take literacy tests. Now, this is just for African American people. Now, I need y'all to understand this. This wasn't for everybody else. It was for Black folk. Had to take a literacy test. You had to, I mean, it was all kind of stuff that you had to do. You couldn't just show up to the polls like we do today and vote. So that's why I want people to understand that is the very reason I'm doing this Facebook Live, this presentation today, because this is, so near and dear to me because I understand what those who came before us, what they had to go through just to be able to cast their ballot. And it is so readily available for us today, and we still refuse to. Not all of us, but some of us, we still refuse to go and vote. In Louisiana, we don't have a problem with registration. There are over 800,000 people that are registered to vote, African Americans that are registered to vote in the state of Louisiana. Now, I'm just speaking for Louisiana. I can't speak for those other states. So registration is not the problem. I've registered people to vote all the time. It's getting to the polls, early voting, getting to the polls on election day. So that's the issue we have with actually voting. It would take the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 before the majority of Americans, African Americans in the South, were registered to vote. So here we go, 1965. That's not that far removed from where we are today in 2024. 1965. Some of you parents and grandparents are still living, and they did not get their right to vote until 1965, the Civil Rights Movement had to come along for Black people to get their right to vote. So I just want you to understand that we have not always had that right. So the women's vote, we just celebrated 100 years in 2020 when women got their right to vote. But again, it wasn't all women that got their right to vote. It was white women that got their right to vote in 1920. It wasn't all, even though it was all women, Latino, Black women, white women, it was all of them that were fighting for the right to vote. They were all part of the suffrage movement. And when you hear suffrage, that just means, your right to vote. We were trying to get a right to be able to vote, to cast our ballot. So it was all women that was fighting for the right to vote, but it was only white women that received that right in 1920. So we just celebrated that 100-year victory in 2020, although it wasn't a victory for Black people. I'm just saying. So achieving this milestone required a lengthy and difficult struggle. Victory took decades of agitation. So what we doing right now today, you say, why are we still marching? Why are we still doing what we doing? It's because of this. Like, you have to know your history. You have to know what we've done in the past and what has brought us victory in the past. And what has brought us victory in the past is going to continue to bring us victory. It's going to bring us victory in the future. But if we're not participating, if we're not engaged, if we're not involved, if we don't have a clue what's going on, then how are we going to make any progress? And I want people to understand progress is not, we may not be making progress as quick as you would like it to be, but we are making progress. We are moving forward. So I just need you to understand that. I know I talk to people all the time about voting, about elections, and why we should be voting. I hear all the time, people are just frustrated, and because they want to see change, they want to see something different. But in order to see change, in order to see something different, we have to all be involved. We have to all be engaged, and we have to be informed. In order for us to participate, we have to be informed, and that's where a lot of the breakdown is at, because we just don't know. We're not informed. I believe now in 2024 that more people are engaged and informed than ever before. But it took us a long time to get here. And I'm excited that we are here, because this is how we're going to push change forward in this country, by everybody being engaged. Like what you're seeing right now in 2024, this didn't just started happening. Like, people been engaged, people been fighting for voting rights, people been trying to move progress forward in this country. So this didn't just happen. Like, we have people that came before us that we can look to see how they navigated this process. So the women suffrage supporters lectured, wrote, marched, lobbied, and practiced civil disobedience to achieve what many Americans consider radical change. So what we doing today, this didn't just start happening. They was doing this back in the 18, 19, 1800s. They was marching, they was lobbying. And so the progress that you see today, the freedoms that you have today is because of those that came before us. If they not did what they did, we probably it wouldn't have been no civil rights movement. We wouldn't have got voting rights. So just know that the freedoms that we have today, our freedoms, it came with a price. We just didn't get here, it just didn't fall out of the sky. We had to work for these freedoms. We had to march. We had to lobby. We had to get beat down. I mean, I didn't have to do it. Thank God we didn't have to do it, but there were people that came before us that had to experience these injustices for us to have the freedoms that we have today. Supporters were heckled, jailed, and sometimes physically abused. So, just always remember that. I always keep that at the front and center, not at the back of my mind, but at the front, because I understand what those that came before us, what they had to go through for us to have the freedoms that we have today. And right now, if you're paying attention to what's going on with politics right now, we are, it's a lot. And we may possibly, I mean, it's a possibility, it's a strong possibility that we here in 2024 can end up with less freedoms than our parents and our grandparents had. So, just think about that. We want to be moving forward. We want to be progressing. We want to see progress. We don't want to be going backwards to what we had to go through, you know, 2 and 3 centuries ago. So qualifications for federal office. So for the president, you have to be at least 35 years old, 35 or older, born in the United States, 14 years or more at your residence. And the term for president is 4 years. Term limit is 2 years. So you see, presidents serve 4 years, and they're limited at 2 terms. So a president cannot be president more than 2 terms. Now they don't have to be 2 consecutive terms. They can win a term, lose a term, then run again. We see that with our former president Donald Trump right now. He was president in 2016. He didn't win in 2020, so now he's running again. So after this, if he was to win the presidency this term, after this, he'll be done. So yeah, I won't have to be. Yeah, I'll probably still be seeing him because he's not even president. We see him more on our television screens, and everywhere else. We see him more than the sitting president. So even if he don't win, you're still probably gonna see him. So, but the president is term limited at 2 terms. For senator, has to be at least 30 years or older, citizen for 9 or plus years. So when I say citizen, I mean they are a citizen of this country, a residence in their state, term 6 years, term limits none. Number of senators 100. So when you look at our United States Senate, there are some people that have been in Washington, D.C., in this country, as a senator for several years because they do not have a term limit. So there are some that I was born in 1981. There are some senators that have been in Washington representing some of these states in the United States of America since I was born. So just think about that and wonder why we can't make the progress that we need to make in this country. Because there are people with old ideologies, old ideas. They just don't have a progressive mindset, and it's hard to just push forward when we have people like that sit and hold in public office for decades, and they still think the same way. Don't have term limits on senators. Vice president has to be at least 35 years or older, born in the United States, be a resident for 14 or more years, term limit 4, limit none. Representative, that's your U.S. representative, have to be at least 25 years old, citizen 7 plus years, resident in the state. That when they say resident in the state, you have to be living in the state where you're running for public office. You have to be living in that state. Term 2 years, limit none. And so we have 100 senators and we have 435 representatives. All right, moving right along. What time is it? So I have a little true false. So a president can be 65 years old. Is that true or false? Can a president be 21 years old? Is that true or false? And can a president be born in Iowa? Is that true or false? Ann Sky is 40 years old. She was born in Michigan. She has always lived in the United States. Can she be president? So yes, so the first one is president can be 65. The president cannot be 21 because again, the president has to be at least 35 years old. And the president can be born in Iowa because Iowa is a state in the United States of America. All right. So 270 votes to win. Slavery and the Electoral College. So this a lot of people don't really understand the Electoral College. And for those of you that don't, I'm gonna try to break it down as much as I can. But it is a very complicated process, and it only applies to the presidential election. It doesn't apply to all of our elections. It doesn't apply to local and state elections or federal elections, for that matter. Just only to the president, only to the presidency. So in the United States, the presidency is decided not by the national popular vote, but by the electoral college. So when I say the popular vote, that means everybody, when we hear one vote, one count, that's everybody who cast a ballot. So every other election other than the presidential election, every person that casts a ballot, that vote is counted and that vote goes towards whether this person becomes whatever seat that they're running for, whatever elected office that they're running for. But it is different with the presidency. So the Electoral College is an outdated and convoluted, and that just means complicated, difficult, hard to understand, difficult system that sometimes yields results contrary to the choice of the majority of American voters. So say everybody that has cast their one ballot in America, the Electoral College is a handful of states in this country that decides who becomes president. So if you're paying attention to what's going on with the elections right now with the president, you see that our two candidates, while two major party candidates, are only campaigning and holding rallies in these particular states that are called swing states. So if you live in a state where the president has not come and did a rally, did a campaign, this is why, because your state is not part of the Electoral College. So the Electoral College, which are called swing states. So you see the president, the candidates are going to Georgia, going to Pennsylvania, going to Florida, going to Minnesota. These are swing states. So and again, it's complicated. It took me a while to get it. I still might not understand all of it. But if you don't get anything else, just I want you to know that your vote does matter. Your vote does count. It's just that the way the presidential election is set up, it is only considered to have electoral votes from these, what they call the swing states. And it is rooted in slavery. It has some racist origins to it. When established, it applied the three-fifth clause, which gave a long-term electoral advantage to slave states in the South and continues to dilute the political power of voters of color. So again, when we talk about all these rights that people of color have received, it came, through legislation. It came through having to file lawsuits. It wasn't just, it just didn't come to us. We just wasn't born and had these rights like other people. So just know that it does, this electoral college, and they've been trying to abolish it for many. Haven't got around to doing it yet. I pray we could one day. If we all get engaged, get involved, and get informed and know what's going on, we could abolish this electoral college mess because it is rooted in slavery and it does not benefit the country as a whole. So it incentivizes presidential campaigns to focus on relatively small number of swing states. So in total, the Electoral College comprises 538 members. A presidential candidate must win a majority of electoral votes to cast to win. At least 270 if all 538 electors vote. So with the president, election day is November 5th. The election probably won't be called on November 5th just because of all the crazy stuff that has been happening. The last 4 or 5 elections, most of them have been called on election day by election night. Our 2020 election was not called until almost a week later, I believe, when Joe Biden was declared the winner when he got to 270 votes. So it almost took a whole week in 2020. So we in 2024 with all kind of crazy stuff going on. We may not know who our next president is till probably a week after next week because election day is November 5th, next Tuesday. So don't count on knowing who our president is on November 5th because of, just all the crazy stuff that's going on in this country. But the first candidate to get to 270 votes is over with. You need that. Once you get to that 270 mark, that's decided by those swing states, they win. So in the 2020 election, once Joe Biden got to that 270, that was it. He was declared the winner. It took a little while to get there. Again, most of the elections, these past elections, were called within the same day by before midnight, but we may not see that in this election. So just know, I know so many people ready for this election to be over with. I am ready for it to be over with because it is just too much. But just know that we may have to wait an additional week or two, hopefully not, before we find out who is our next president of the United States for the next 4 years. Okay, so that's a little information about the Electoral College. I encourage you to go and do some more research on it because this is just like a small portion of it in the history of it. So it is really complicated. Again, there are people that against it that don't support it, trying to abolish it, which I believe it should be abolished because it is rooted in racist origins. It wasn't, it wasn't designed to benefit every American. So anything that wasn't designed to benefit every American, then it should not be in operation. So that's how we get to our presidential winner. All right. So some of the common questions around voting. Have my notes here. I'm not even looking at my notes, but I'm trying to keep up. So, some common questions around voting. Where do I vote? When do I vote? When and where do I vote if I can't make it on election day? What identification do I need? Can I still vote if I'm not registered to vote? Especially with young people ages 18 to 24, the confusion around how to cast their ballot acts as a major deterrent to voting. So, these are some common questions. In every state has different guidelines for voting. So I'm just going to speak on Louisiana because that's where I live. Louisiana is where I've always lived, where I've always voted. So where do I vote? So right now in Louisiana, early voting is happening, and early voting is different in every state. Some states don't even have early voting. I think it's 3 states. I think Mississippi, Alabama, and one other state I can't remember. But 3 states do not have early voting. So we are very fortunate here in Louisiana to be able to early vote. In early voting, you don't need a reason to early vote. And I think I talk about early voting on the next slide. So I'll wait till I get there. So when do I vote? You can early vote or you can vote absentee if you know you're not going to be in the state, or you're in school in another state, or you're in school in another parish if you're in Louisiana. If you just know you're not going to be able to show up to the poll in person on election day, then you need to do an absentee ballot. And you can get that from your register of voters office. They'll send you one in the mail. That's if you don't vote on election day or early vote in person. So when and where do I vote if I can't make it on election day? Is that the one I just read? Okay. What identification do I need? So you do need a state identification card. You can use your driver's license, your ID card, your passport. You just need some type of identification when you vote. So you can't just show up and say that I want to vote, and the people at the polling place are not able to identify you. So you have to have some type of identification. Can I still vote if I'm not registered to vote? No, you cannot. You have to be registered to vote in order to vote. And again, in Louisiana, we don't. I mean, there are people that still need to register, but we don't really have a registration problem. People are registered to vote in Louisiana. We just don't show up to the polls for whatever reason. But I hope that gets better. So, young people ages 18 to 24, the confusion around how to cast their ballot acts as a major deterrent to voting. So, if you know a young person that may be voting for the first time in Louisiana, if you are 17 years old and you will be 18 by election day, by November 5th, you can register. They will allow you to register, but you just have to be 18 when you show up to vote on election day. So educate the young people and teach them what it means to vote, teach them the importance of voting, show them the process, go to the polls with them, because there's a lot of confusion around how to cast their ballot. You know, we can't just be telling people go vote, go vote, go vote, go vote. And people don't understand the process. They don't know how to vote. So make sure you're doing that. You're educating, especially the young people, because they just don't know. Okay? All right, so early vote. Now, we're just talking about early vote. Early vote is happening right now in Louisiana. So if you have not cast your ballot, early voting started October 18th and it ends tomorrow, October 29th. And then you won't be able to vote again until Tuesday, November 5th. So if you're not sure, and then Tuesday is a day a lot of people are working. So if you may not be able to make it to the polls on Tuesday, November 5th, I encourage you to get to the polls today before 6 o'clock p.m. or tomorrow between 8 o'clock, 8:30 and 6 o'clock p.m., okay? So early voting permits citizens to cast ballots in person at a polling place prior to an election. And states that permit no excuse early voting, and Louisiana is a state that permits no excuse early voting, so you don't need to have a reason or an excuse to vote early. Just go and vote. You go vote early. You don't have to worry about doing it on election day. You can avoid those long lines because people are just used to voting on election day. And so I get it. But if you don't want to stand in those long lines, just go and vote. Go vote early. So 47 states, the District of Columbia, Guam, is that Guam or Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands offer early in-person voting to all voters. Three states, Alabama, Mississippi, and New Hampshire, do not offer early voting in person. And early in person voting periods vary by state. So, again, as I said, early voting guidelines are different from state to state. Some states have early voting like a month and a half. It's over a month. In Louisiana, we have 10 days. But some states they started early voting in September. So it just kind of varies, from state to state. All right, so absentee casting your ballot. This is absentee ballot. That is just a little illustration of what the early voting systems looks like in Louisiana. So in Louisiana, you must have a reason to be eligible to absentee vote unless you are a military or overseas voter. Disabled voters, military voters, and overseas voters may be eligible to receive their absentee ballot electronically. Let me see here to give some more reasons where you can absentee vote. All right, so for senior citizens, if you are 65 years or older, you can get an absentee ballot. If you're going to be temporarily absent, say you work offshore, higher education, say you are in college in another state, you can vote absentee if you're a clergy, minister, priest, rabbi, and you're going to be out of the parish. And now these are guidelines for Louisiana guidelines for absentee voting. If you've moved out of the parish and you haven't registered 30 days prior to an election, you can absentee vote. Involuntary confinement, if you're hospitalized, say if something happened and you end up in the hospital and you won't be able to vote on election day, you can request an absentee ballot. If you are incarcerated, this is an important one. If you are incarcerated, if you have not been convicted of a crime, you are still eligible to vote. So you can vote if you are incarcerated. They do allow you to get an absentee ballot if you are incarcerated, if you have not been convicted. And in Louisiana, if you have been convicted, if you have been on parole or probation for at least 5 years, well, parole, if you've been off of parole, if you've been on parole for at least 5 years, and you can register to vote and vote. But you have to be to serve at least 5 years of your sentence. So that is something new that came about in the last few years, with some of the laws that changed in Louisiana that are currently being reversed. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But just know, if you are incarcerated and you have not been convicted of a crime, a felony crime, you can vote. You can do an absentee ballot. Address confidentiality program. If you're a juror, say you're going to have jury duty on election day, you're not going to be able to show up to the polls and vote, you can request an absentee ballot. If you have a physical disability, so those who have disability, they can absentee vote as well. So those are reasons to absentee vote. So absentee ballot just means that you won't be able to physically show up at the polling place to early vote or on election day. So you can request an absentee ballot. All right. So election day voting. When you go to the polls to cast your vote in an election, be sure to take one of the following. Make sure I think I already shared this information. Make sure you take your driver's license, Louisiana special ID, LA wallet, digital driver's license, United States military identification card that contains your name and picture, some other generalized recognized picture ID that contains your name and signature. And this is just a little illustration of a sample ballot in Louisiana. Louisiana has a very, very good, I think is a good app that we have, the Go Vote app. I've been using the Go Vote app for many, many years. So all the information you need is right there on that app. So it can give you a sample ballot. It can you just have to create your own account, and once you log in, everybody that's on your ballot, it shows up. You can have your ballot pre-filled out before you even show up to the poll, so you can just check off the person that you're voting for. Everybody that's on the ballot going to be on there. You just check it off. When you go inside the voting booth, you have it right there in front of you. So anything you need to know about elections in Louisiana, it is on that Go Vote app. Louisiana Secretary of State will send you voting reminders if you sign up for it. Will send you, after you cast your ballot, will send you an email and a text message just to confirm that your ballot was cast. So I think we have a really good system in Louisiana. It could be better. It could be improved. There's always room for improvement. But I think we have a really good system as far as making sure everybody is accountable to what happens with our elections, making sure we have safe elections in Louisiana. All right. All right, so I have another pop quiz for you. Name three levels of government, and I'm just gonna go ahead and show the answers, because normally when I'm doing my master class is on a Zoom, and we're actually having interaction. That's the way I like to do my classes and my teachings on Zoom, where we can actually have some interaction. But doing it on Facebook Live, I can't even see if anybody's watching. I can't even see if anybody's in the chat. So if anybody have any questions, anybody place any questions in the chat, I will take a look at it once I finish with the slides and go back to the screen so I can see. So I'm just gonna show the answers for my little pop quiz. So three levels of government. So we have three branches of government and we have three levels of government. So don't get them confused. So these are the three levels: local, state, and federal. All righty. All right, so key statistics about voting. So 2 of 5 Americans do not vote in presidential elections. Three of five Americans do not vote in midterm elections. And a midterm election, that's just an election in between the presidential election. So the president election is every 4 years. There are elections in between the president election. We need to be voting in every single election. And that is what we have a history of, just not showing up for the midterm election. Those are elections where we are electing our local officials, our state officials, state representatives, state senators, school board persons, members, district attorneys, judges, commissioners, county commissioners, parish commissioners, all that stuff. State treasurer, is more to the election than just the president. Okay, so we have to show up for all those elections. We have ballot measures that's on the ballot. In Louisiana, we have five. So make sure you're reading those. Make sure you're doing your research on that so you know what you're voting for. If you're checking yes or you're checking no, just don't be checking yes or checking no and you don't know what you're checking yes or no for. You have to read that stuff because a lot of those ballot measures, you are going to be paying taxes, additional taxes on top of taxes you already paying. So you want to make sure you know what you're voting for. Now, there's nothing wrong with supporting some of those ballot measures because they're renewing taxes. It's probably stuff that you've already been paying for. You probably didn't know you were paying for because you just really don't keep up with all that stuff. But read those ballot measures, read that stuff, those amendments, because it's important. Because a lot of times it's more money that's going to come out of your pockets to be able to fund these things. Okay. So 1 in 5 Americans is not registered to vote. So just think 1 in every 5 person is not registered to vote. Hope you're not that 1 in 5. Hope that you are registered and I hope that you are voting, not in just the presidential election, but in every single election. Okay, it's important. All right, so this is the part I love here. This is the call to action. So we talking about, remember we talked about in the beginning of the presentation, faith without works is dead. So we can't just be having faith and just looking for everybody else to do it. No, we have to be a part of the change that we want to see. We have to make sure that we are engaged. We make sure that we are involved. Stop waiting for other people to do it. Everything that has come, everything that we have made progress in, I'm sorry, change has come because people have did their part. You have to do your part. We have to do this as a collective. We can't just be waiting for other people to do what you think they should be doing. Is what you should be doing, okay? So I have a call to action. So taking civic action involves engaging in activities that contribute to the well-being of the community and the functioning of the democratic process. So here are some ways that you can take action. In the book that I just wrote, Sacred Civic Action, Quick Guide to Engaging in Civic Life. These are some of the ways that I outline in that book that we can take civic action. Voting and electoral participation. That is what we just went through. You can participate in this progress. First, get educated. Get yourself engaged and educated on what's going on. Don't tell me that you don't do politics. Don't tell me that you don't understand politics because you can understand it. You can do your research. You can get educated on it. You can say you're not doing politics, but guess what? Politics is doing you because every decision about your life is being made by other people. And if you're not involved in that process, then there are people that are elected to public office that has power that are making decisions about you, making decisions about your family, making decisions about your grandchildren that are not even here yet, your great grandchildren that are not even here yet. They are making decisions about your life that's going to affect you every single day. So don't tell me you don't do politics. You need to do politics because politics is doing you. So you need to get educated. You need to find out what it is that you need to know, even if it's no more than finding out stuff about in your local community. You need to know what's happening. Volunteer for campaigns. Support political campaigns by volunteering your time to canvass, make phone calls, and distribute materials. Right now, we're doing phone banking. We are making phone calls. We're calling people. We're texting people. We're doing door-to-door canvas. We're doing all that. So if you want to get involved, we still have, 8 more days left to the election. There's still work to be done. We still have an election that's coming up next week. So we need all hands on deck. So if you want to volunteer, I have some volunteer opportunities for you if you want to get involved. Just contact me or you can go to the website and you can sign up there. Run for office. Consider running for a local or higher office to directly influence policy and represent your community. Run for office, get engaged, get educated on what you need to do for run for office. Running for office. There are a lot of organizations that help men and women to get prepared to run for office. Volunteer at local organizations. Offer your time and skills to nonprofits, schools, shelters, and other community organizations. Organize community cleanups, help organize or participate in efforts to clean and beautify public spaces. Mentor youth. These young people need mentoring. Engage in mentorship programs to support and guide young people in your community. Don't just keep talking about the youth is lost. Yes, they're lost, but they can be found because we were once lost too, but now we are found because of God's amazing grace. So get in there, mentor these youth, help them to get on the right path. We can't just throw our children away. We have to make sure that we are engaged, we are involved, and we are teaching the next generation because they're not only our future, they are our present. I hear people say all the time, well, the children are our future. No, the children are our now. The children are our present. They are here now, and they can make a difference right now. However old they are, right now in their communities, they can be making a difference, but they need support and encouragement and empowerment from those that have came before them. So mentor some young people and host informational sessions like this what I'm doing right here today. This is an informational session. You can organize workshops, panels, town halls to educate your community on important issues. Don't have to be something that you don't know about, something that you are passionate about, something that you have knowledge of. Voting in elections, politics, that's something that I'm passionate about. I can talk about this stuff all day long. I can talk about politics all day. I can talk about the Bible all day. So find something that you are passionate about, that you love to talk about, that you love to teach, something that you're educated on. Make sure you're educated before you're trying to host these sessions now. But get involved in that way to educate people because people need to be educated. It's not that people are apathetic. I hear people say all the time where, voters are apathetic. I don't believe that's the case at all. It can be, it may be, but I believe for the most part, people are just not educated. They need the information, they need the knowledge. So if it's something that you have knowledge of, that you can teach, that you can educate people on, then do that. It's needed. Create and share content. Use social media, blogs, or local media to share information and raise awareness. So if you're on social media for any amount of time, share some content that's gonna be beneficial, that's gonna help to advance our communities, that's gonna, just gonna help people, not something that's going to be tearing people down, not something that's gonna be harmful to our community, something that's gonna be uplifting, something that's gonna be encouraging, raising awareness about something. Share that good positive information on your social media. Join a community group, participate in neighborhood associations, book clubs, discussion groups, focus on civic issues, all of that stuff. If you don't have a group to join, start your own group. Simple as that. Organize community events, plan events such as cultural festivals. If you live in Louisiana, you know we have a festival for everything. So you add one more festival to it, it ain't gonna hurt nothing. Block parties or fundraisers to foster community engagement. Invest in community projects, contribute time or money to local projects that improve public spaces such as parks, community gardens, or libraries. So this is your call to action. I don't do anything without a call to action. We're gonna have a call to action at the end because it's needed. We gotta take action. Faith without works is what? Dead. Okay, so continuing the journey. So this is a book that I recently wrote and published, Sacred Civic Action, Quick Guide to Engaging in Civic Life. Taking civic action is a powerful way to contribute to the well-being of your community and the broader society. By engaging in these various forms of civic participation, you can help shape a more just, equitable, and democratic world. This call to action encourages everyone to embrace their civic duties, take meaningful steps toward engagement, and inspire others to do the same. So when you get informed, when you get engaged, when you get educated, when you get empowered, guess what? You go out and educate the next person. Each one teach one, each one reach one. That's how we doing this. So whether through voting, volunteering, advocacy, or community building, every action counts and collectively drives positive. All the information I shared here about voting and elections, some of that can be found in my book, Sacred Civic Action. The book, it I talk about four core areas in the book. Civics 101, give you a basic civics lesson because some of us been out of school for a while. It's been a while since we took civics. So I give you a basic civics lesson. Again, if you want to participate in the process, it's going to be hard if you don't even know how the process works. So you have to know how American government works to be able to participate in the process. The book talk about, I share voting and elections. I share volunteer service and civil protest. Yes, civil protest does work. Yes, marching does work. And I talk about that in the book about why we should be protesting because some injustices, some things call for civil protests. And so we have to be ready to march and do whatever we need to do, boycott, whatever. But I talk about that in the book as well. Okay, so you can go to Amazon and order the book. You can also visit my website if you want to learn more about anything that I'm doing as it relates to sacred civic action, as it relates to my life coaching, any of that. You can go to the website, allthingscynthiayoung.com. Again, that is allthingscynthiayoung.com, or you can send me an email at info@glowingingrace.me, info@glowingingrace.me. Okay. So we are done. We at 4:29. All right. Let me get back here. Let me move the screen. Well, all right. So I guess I can't. Well, I can, but I gotta. Okay, here we go. All right. That's what I was trying to do. All right. All righty. So that is it for our voting and election. So if you have any questions about anything that was shared, any concerns, you can reach out to me and contact me, and I will try to get those answered for you, whatever it may be. But again, early voting is happening right now in Louisiana. So if you have not already cast your ballot, go and cast your ballot. Make sure you early vote. Don't wait until election day, which is next Tuesday, November 5th, because you never know, something may come up where you are not able to go and cast your ballot. Okay. So thank you for joining. I will talk to y'all soon. Make sure you get out and vote and tell everybody else about voting. Share this information with someone, share information about voting with someone because we need everyone involved. We need all hands on deck in this election. Okay. So I will talk to y'all soon. Y'all take